We good? Okay. So here's the problem with most digital nomad visas. Hey, what's going on? Daniel here. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the drawbacks or some of the disadvantages, the problems, the issues that I've seen with most digital nomad visas. A lot of countries right now are rolling out this programs, digital nomad visas here and there. They're trying to capitalize on the growing trend, and it's almost as if most countries just want to do it as fast as possible so they can join the trend without having the proper background or doing the proper research or having thought through it well and executing it properly. Now, the first problem I see with most digital nomad visas is the bureaucracy behind it. Now, I've covered some digital nomad visas on this channel: Portugal, Colombia, Malaysia. Especially Malaysia is the one which is got a lot of attention and it's open right now. A lot of people want to apply, but when you go through the application process, you realize that a lot of governments are still using a one-size-fits-all approach to this digital nomad visas. You go on the website, you see all of the requirements, all the information properly laid out on the website. Then when it comes time to apply, because I was watching a video just yesterday of another person talking about the application process for the Malaysia digital nomad visa, and it's almost like nothing you see on the website. Some of the requirements, some of the things they require are not very realistic for people who are digital nomads, because nomads are travelers, they go everywhere. But when governments start talking about having a letter of good conduct, say for example US citizens, they have to go to FBI, or they ask you to snap every empty page of your passport when you sometimes have 50-60 pages, or when they want you to submit your bank statement for the last 6 months and they want you to put all of that into one single document. I mean, you start thinking, how is this realistic? And what I see happening is that a lot of people making these policies, making these decisions on behalf of governments, they don't really have the knowledge about what the digital nomad lifestyle entails or what it should require from digital nomads. When you're asking all this information, have you really sat down with experts in the digital nomad world, people who know this demographic, and just figuring out exactly how you can tailor your program to fit or to suit the lifestyle of these people that you're trying to attract? So I think what most governments need to do is to really sit down with the experts in this field and just figure out a tailored approach to go about these programs, and not use some age-old methods that's been in use since the 60s and 70s and bringing it back in 2022. I don't think that's really going to work. So that's the first problem that I see with the digital nomad visas, is that they're trying to use a one-size-fits-all approach, whereas they need to invest in the proper research and have the right people who can consult, go back and forth, I believe, with most digital nomads and see what they require and what approach best suits them. So this is the number one problem. Now, the second problem that I see with most digital nomads is the cost of these programs. For example, a lot of countries require that you make 4 times the national minimum wage, or maybe sometimes 5 times, sometimes even more than that. Now, that amounts sometimes to anywhere between $3,000 to $7,000. Now, let's be honest, if you're putting forward a requirement like that, are you really doing it for the digital nomads, or are you wanting to do it for wealthy business owners or business owners who are successful enough to be able to move their businesses and be able to work anywhere? Because if we look at the reality of most digital nomads that you're trying to attract, most digital nomads don't make that much. I mean, even if they do, it's probably because they've been settled for so long and they're no longer nomads. When I look at countries like Colombia that will be rolling out its own digital nomad program very soon, requiring digital nomads to make at least $700 a month, then you think to yourself, you ask yourself, what makes this program different from other programs? Is it because some other programs are in Europe or in the Schengen region? Is that why they require so much? Whereas in Colombia, I can bet you have a better way of life, a better standard of living. I mean, there's more cultural value there. There's more historical value in Colombia than any of these countries. So it becomes a question of, why are you really doing this? And it doesn't make sense at that point. So cost is something that will deter a lot of people from applying to these digital nomad visas. And also, when you think about all the citizens from different parts of the world who are legitimately digital nomads or working remotely, maybe not traveling every 2-3 weeks, but legitimately remote workers who qualify for these digital nomad visas by virtue of that, are they making up to $3,000, $4,000 that you require? Say, for example, someone who's based in a third world country, say like Nigeria, Ghana, all these countries. I have a lot of friends who are legitimately remote workers making enough money, yeah, good enough money for their countries, but don't necessarily make $3,000-4,000 per month, and they still, by virtue of their nature of the work, they still qualified for digital nomad visa, but just cannot, produce that kind of money. So putting such cost on this program, I believe a lot of countries are not in touch with the reality, and this goes back to the first point, that these countries are probably just using, a one-size-fits-all approach, like a cookie-cutter approach, just using something that already exists with other visa types and just bringing it over into digital nomad and just slapping, the remote work, requirement on there. So I think that's not going to work for a lot of people, and that's some of the complaints that I've heard in the comments and the DMs, about the cost of these digital nomad visas. Now let's talk about the third problem with the digital nomad visa that I see, and that is accessibility. Now, while a lot of countries want to jump on the digital nomad bandwagon, a lot of them are still finding it very difficult to abandon old habits. For example, some countries require you to have a minimum income threshold of $4,000 to $7,000, which is already high. And some countries require that you are citizens of OECD countries. OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And if you look at this map right here, which I'm going to leave you on the screen, you can tell that something looks very familiar. All of these countries are mostly United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and most Schengen countries. And that really begs the question of, the inclusivity, the openness that the digital nomad visa is supposed to be. Are you handpicking citizens of certain countries because, other citizens are from poorer countries, or are you just wanting to attract the high rollers, the, high income citizens? And I don't think that is fair enough to citizens of other countries who are legitimately digital nomads or legitimately making enough money to be able to qualify for these programs. So I think this alienation of other citizens from applying to these digital nomad programs is not something that should exist or that should occur in 2022. Are you wanting to jump on a bandwagon because it's cool, because it's fresh, because you can attract, high spenders, while alienating citizens of other countries? So these are the things that I think are wrong with the digital nomad visa, and I hope that this video, someone making policy watches it and puts the right and proper systems in place for the digital nomads that are coming, or the ones that already exist, and they can just restructure it in a way that is very accommodating, very inclusive of everyone, not just certain citizens of certain countries and certain regions of the world. So these are the things I feel that are wrong with the digital nomad visa, and I think it's going to pose a problem going into the future. And if you have any other things to add to this video, leave them in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to have a conversation about it. Anyways, this video has been helpful. Consider subscribing, and if you want to listen to my podcast and everything I have going on, check them out in the description as well. My name is Daniel, and I will see you in the next video.